Hello there, time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us are Jonathan Liu, the sports writer and opinion columnist from The Guardian, and Ihsan Khan of the Daily Mail. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run you through some back pages before we chat. We'll start with The Guardian. Red letter day, they say. Amorim holds on to United belief after his tough first year. We'll be discussing United at length. Elsewhere, the paper also focuses on the Women's Cricket World Cup semi-final. Records shattered as India reach final. A historic win for India against the reigning world champions. And also in the newspaper, cruel blow. Ajiman ruled out for season with ACL injury. What a negative outcome there for England's star player. The main image on the back of the eye, sports, is of Jemima Rodrigues, the heroine of India's win over on Australia. Incredible World Cup win to reach the final there. Meanwhile, Amorim shrugs off Dyche dig before Forest clash. That's in reference to Sean Dyche's comments about the job he could have done at United before he took charge at Nottingham Forest. Well, the Daily Telegraph lead on an exclusive. England accuse Australia of illegal and dangerous tactics. This refers to concerns about Australia's illegal breakdown tactics before their first autumn test against the Wallabies on Saturday. Meanwhile, in the Scottish Daily Mail, McKenna refuses to dismiss Celtic links is the headline as Celtic drop their targets to replace Brendan Rodgers. And the current Ipswich man is thought to be one of the favourites in line. OK, let's start then with looking at Manchester United, who feature on all of the back pages of the newspapers this time around, as Ruben Amorim set to celebrate his first year in charge of the club. He's described it to the media, Jonathan, as being tough, very tough. And it has been, hasn't it? It's been a rollercoaster at times for Ruben Amorim. How do you reflect on his time so far at the club?
Well, it's clearly been the first year of what was intended to be and now looks like being a much longer process. I think one of the reasons that United signed him last year in the first place is that they wanted to almost break out of this kind of boom and bust cycle where you assemble an incredibly expensive team and then it's essentially junk it after a couple of seasons, which is what happened with Ten Hag, it's what happened with Solskjaer, and it's what happened with Rangnick, where they went through that weird period. And the idea was basically to build something. And the trouble with building anything, especially from the ruins of what United was when Amorim took over, is that there are going to be fits and starts and bumps in the road and setbacks. And at a club like United, every single setback is portrayed like it is total catastrophe. We've seen this, we go back less than a month. It's less than a month ago we're basically meant to believe that Amorim was fighting for his job, and a lot of the fans wanted him to be sacked, and that's fine because fans are allowed to be emotional about this, but a lot of people who make their living out of talking about football were saying sack Amorim. This club is junk. It's never going to work. The system doesn't work. The players don't fit the system. The soul's gone out of the club. And that was 3 weeks ago. Is he markedly? Has he gone from being an absolute joke of a manager 3 weeks ago to being an absolute genius now? Of course he hasn't. And I think what it shows, what this first year shows, and rollercoaster is right, is that sometimes when you're building something long term, you have to weather like incredible short term pressure to be able to see that time out. And I think it's a measure of the kind of ferocity of the judgment that he's been subjected to in that first year, that he seems to be, right now, he seems to be coming out of it and seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, he seems like he's ridden the short-term storm, as it were, right now. Who knows what might happen in the run-up to Christmas. But Ihsan, in his comments, he also said, Ruben Amorim, that managing Manchester United is one of the biggest honours of my life. I want to continue here for many years to come. So what do you feel like the next 12 months will look like at Manchester United? Is it possible to predict it?
Well, as we've seen with the last 12 months, the last month, even I wouldn't bear even try to predict the next 12 months. But from what we've seen in the last 3-4 weeks, there does seem to be a turnaround of sorts. Obviously, it's very early to say off the back of 3 league victories in the balance to say that everything is rosy and everything is now going to go in one direction. But what we have seen in the last few weeks is direction, purpose, and also a sense of confidence, which has been lacking around the team and the club. There's one thing, headlines suggesting things are worse than they are, but it's another thing, the results and performance on the pitch. There seems to be more of a togetherness on the pitch, and compared to previous years where some of the signings haven't gone to plan, two that very much have gone correctly so far has been Brian Mbeumo and Mateus Cunha. They've added an absolute injection of pace, energy, and life in that front line, and that's the product of signing players with Premier League experience. Too often we've seen with other players across the league for other teams where you bring in a player from a different league and it takes that time to bed in, and some players just can't bed into the Premier League. So that was smart recruitment, and Man United deserve credit there because it's not always gone right in the recruitment area. So that is a positive in that realm, and obviously going forward there's obviously a lot of talk about this 3-4-3 formation and the issues around that noise is starting to quieten now because of the results. As I say, it's still early days. There is time left to see how things turn out, but the advantage Manchester United have here, of course, is not being in Europe. They only have that one game a week to manoeuvre and deal with, which if they use that to their strength, not being in Europe, they have extra time to bed in Amorim's philosophy. And from here, things can go even stronger, surely.
Yeah, well, you mentioned signings at Manchester United there, Ihsan. And Jonathan, we've had some really interesting quotes from Manchester United's director of football in the Times, Jason Wilcox. And he's talking about signings and getting the right kind of player, not just signing elite players, but the players that can handle the pressure of being a United player. But most interestingly, he also says that for us to get in the top 4 and consistently challenge for Champions League, to win the Premier League, etc., we have got to invest in the squad. They've got to invest, Jonathan, if they want to get into the top 4. So, assumingly, he's backing the manager, Ruben Amorim. If he's given money in January, are we then talking about a Manchester United team that can challenge for a top 4 finish?
Well, I think if you look at the table and you look at the way that a lot of the teams that you would be expecting to be challenging for the title, perhaps, or certainly for the top 4, have been faltering a little bit. I think it's totally not ridiculous to talk about United as on current form as potential Champions League qualifiers. Well, I mean, why not, right? They are playing good football. The team seems to be gelling. The spirit seems to be good, and we are in a league where there seem to be a lot of very good teams, but maybe apart from Arsenal, no truly great teams. So a lot of the places are going to be up for grabs. In terms of the spending and the recruitment, this is basically what Wilcox has been. He is part of this revolution that Radcliffe has tried to bring in, where you are essentially building up a new transfer philosophy from the ground up. Far too much money has been wasted on aging players, on players who maybe had a name or came in on big wages and with no real thought to what they were going to be doing in 2 or 3 years' time. And that's how United ended up with a huge wage bill full of players who often the club didn't want to be there anymore, who they essentially had to wait out. So yeah, I mean, in terms of spending in the squad is all very well, but it's spending a little bit smarter. I think that's what United have been doing, certainly in the last couple of windows. They've been spending their money a little bit smarter and with a little bit more view to what they're going to be long term on the balance sheet.
Imagine if United did make top 4. I wonder what Sean Dyche would have to say about it. He's been critical of Ruben Amorim before he took over at Nottingham Forest. He said on Gary Neville's Overlap podcast that he could possibly win more games than Amorim could, Ihsan, if he was in charge, possibly playing 4-4-2. What do you make of these comments? You can see it on the back of the Sun there. Troll of the Dyche. Ruben hits back at Sean's I could do better boast. What do you make of all this, Ihsan?
Well, yeah, I'd like to see Sean Dyche try and get the opportunity to do that. I beg to differ with him on that, but I think Ruben was correct in what he said about that. That obviously that was influenced by Dyche being in a pundit role and needing to puts out them kind of eye-catching comments, which obviously gain traction. But one thing we've learned from Ruben since he has taken charge of Manchester United is, to his credit, he even when the storm has got bad and he's weathered a lot of it. To his credit, he's been able to maneuver and roll the punches in a graceful way. He tries to, at least from the public perception, not come across deterred by criticism and comments. So it's no surprise here the way he's flat batted what Dyche has said here and not bitten at it or taken umbrage to these comments, which are laughable, really.
So Forest will go up against Manchester United, with United looking for a fourth straight league win. OK, we're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in the Telegraph. After spending almost £500 million, are Liverpool really lacking in depth? You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to Jonathan Liew of The Guardian and the Daily Mail's Ihsan Khan. Let's get to the Telegraph then and speak about Liverpool and a manager possibly under some pressure at the moment, Arne Slot. Message to Slot, they say, do not complain about squad strength when you've spent £446 million. That, of course, after Liverpool's summer spending spree. Now, Jonathan, I wonder, is perhaps, this idea that we're talking about a manager under pressure in Arne Slot is indicative of where Liverpool are at the moment, some calling it a crisis. Is it a fair argument to say that Liverpool, after spending all that money in the summer, lack squad strength and depth?
Yeah, so there's two elements to this, right? There's the substance of what Slot was saying the other night, which I think is, even though it sounds weird when they've spent, like we see, £446 million, they lost a lot of players in the summer after not signing anybody the previous summer, as we know. But they lost a lot of players. Alexander-Arnold and Luis Diaz, Darwin Nunez, Diogo Jota, obviously, Kwanzaa, Kelleher, Harvey Elliott, Tsimikas, and okay, they've spent big on quality. They've brought a huge amount of quality in, but in terms of like raw numbers in the squad, do they have more depth than last season? Not really. I think that the fact that Slot is playing clearly a weakened team in the Carabao Cup suggests that he does see real issues with conditioning in that squad. So that's the substance of what we say. But you come to was it right for him to say it? And I think obviously not, because when you're in the Premier League, every month there is a banter club, and your job is not to be it, right? And this month it's Liverpool. It was United in August. It was Nottingham Forest in September, and this month it's Liverpool. And I think that headline is not quite right. It's if they hadn't spent £446 million and he was moaning about squad depth, people would still find a reason to have a go at him. The point is that when you have lost 4 or 5 games in a row, whatever you do isn't really, whatever you say in a press conference is going to be twisted and used against you and used basically to ridicule you. So don't complain about squad depth when you've lost several games in a row, I think is the lesson there.
Yeah, OK, and some fans may well agree with you there, Jonathan. It's a big week, though, isn't it, Ihsan, for this Liverpool team? Got Aston Villa, who are on the resurgence, an incredible Real Madrid side in Europe, and then fellow title challengers, Manchester City. What would be, I suppose, respectable? What would be deemed as a success by the end of next week when they come out of that Manchester City game in terms of results?
Well, after what's happened in the last few weeks, they ideally need wins in both league games to have any chance of being in this title race. It's still very early on, but because of what's happened the last few weeks, pretty much they've got a real uphill task here. But it's wider than just a title race. From what's happened, as I say, in the last few weeks, that's not just as a consequence of a rare blip. It seems wider than that. There's various points to it. There's obviously the lack of integration of the players and new signings like Wirtz and Isak, who have just not fitted in the way that slot would have imagined. But you also have to go back to the summer with the tragic death of Diogo Jota. That'll obviously have had a massive impact on the mental psyche of the players. An event like that will have shaken them to the core, no doubt. But also you've got to remember that from last season, Slot obviously won the Premier League title and navigated a number of issues, including the Trent situation, the Salah situation, Van Dijk, and all them kind of scenarios. So you don't just become a bad manager overnight, and you certainly don't become bad manager over a few games. What has happened is obviously a catastrophic run. I think it's 5 league defeats if they lose to Villa, which would be the first thing. It's about 1953, I think, the first time that's happened since for Liverpool. So it's
Yeah.
just a dire situation for them. Can Slot bring him out of this mess? Yes, as we've seen what he did with Liverpool last season. But as I say, it's a complex scenario with so many different factors at play.
Yeah. Okay, let's switch to another manager now, and Kieran McKenna. In the Scottish Daily Mail, they say McKenna refuses to dismiss Celtic link. That's the headline you can see there on the right-hand column. This is Celtic drawing up their targets to replace Brendan Rodgers. But Kieran McKenna has spoken to the media. He says he is solely focused on Ipswich in the short, medium and long term, and he hasn't really given much thought to anything else apart from getting wins for Ipswich. Jonathan, what's your view on this? Because do you feel like he could be the right man to take Celtic forward? Because they're in a bit of a pickle at the moment, even with O'Neill in interim charge.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I remember McKenna fielding a lot of questions of this sort towards the end of Ipswich's promotion season. He was obviously linked with the Chelsea job, he was linked with the United job, and basically every week people would come into him and say, like, would you take this job? Are you interested in this job? They're interested in you. And I thought he dealt with all of that. You have to call it a huge distraction to what was still a promotion campaign. I thought he dealt with that really well. Now, in terms of Celtic, I think the way that Rodgers has been treated, so I mean that extraordinary statement that Celtic released the other night. I think if you're an up-and-coming manager with a reputation, is this really a club that you want to be associated with right now? I think you really have to do your due diligence on Celtic, on the board, on the strategy, on the finances as well, I think. Because I think that there are huge red flags over that club and that job. And I think Kieran McKenna is a smart young manager who I think might know better than to go there right now.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the Telegraph then. And sad news for one of England's Euro Lionesses, who had such an amazing tournament at the recent Euros this summer. Real key player for England. You can see the headline there, Michelle Agyman's ACL rupture wrecks plan to make her England's next big thing. She injured herself with a serious knee injury against Australia. Ihsan, this is a big blow for someone so young and up and coming who everyone was really excited to see how she developed.
Yes, it's a real sad story, this. You could see when it happened as she left the pitch on a stretcher in tears, you could just see straight away that it was a significant injury. And now the news has come out and she'll be I think it's up to 12 months she could be sidelined for, which is obviously a considerable amount of time. And just in the midst of her ascent, she had an amazing Euros campaign with them. Stunning equalisers, I think, in the quarterfinals and the semi-finals as well of the competition. So she was very much on the rise and ready to kick on from this. And she was a trump card for the Euros with the England women's qualifying campaign. She could have been another wild card for that tournament in terms of the impact she had at the Euros. Could have translated that to the World Cup. So it's a sad, massive blow for her at a time where, as I say, she was really on the up and had a lot in front of her to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah, OK, let's switch our focus now to cricket, because I don't know if I'm over-egging it, Jonathan, by calling it an instant classic, but India against Australia in the Cricket World Cup semi-final was absolutely phenomenal. Back page of the Eye, my Jemima, Rodrigues stuns Aussies and sends India to World Cup final. This was absolutely immense, particularly coming from the Aussies, who reigning world champions, unbeaten in the World Cup for 8 long years. And India making a record run chase. It was phenomenal, wasn't it?
It was incredible. I mean, especially, Australia putting 330 on the board. I think mentally they tuned out of that game a little bit.
Right.
Australia don't lose from those sorts of situations. And I just, India did a huge number on them. And I think it's going to be a big question whether they've blown their emotional load before the final against South Africa, because there were some real tears on the pitch afterwards. They will have the home crowd behind them. They will start as heavy favourites, and I think that'll be a hugely different kind of challenge for them. But a really, really unbelievable performance. I think one of the greatest women's ODIs of all time.
Yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal. And what an impressive performance as well from Jemima Rodrigues. It's been an absolute pleasure. Jonathan Liew, thank you very much. Ihsan Khan, great to have your insights and company on Back Pages, as always. Now, if you missed any of the show, there's another chance to see Back Pages tonight at 1:30. And the show is also available as a podcast. As always, just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can join us again on Friday night when our guests will be Mark Ogden and John Cross.